Wow, what an episode! As you know, I've seen the entire season 4, and while there's plenty of stuff still to come, some of it awesome, some of it deeply disturbing, I would say that of the 8 episodes in season 4, this would be my favorite. Oh, I loved it. I think it's just top to bottom the best in terms of construction. Just like so much happens on so many levels with so many different characters. And I know some of you have said that you think season 4 is a bit repetitive, but I think that there was a lot of new stuff here. I just thought it was incredible. And we're going to dive into the heavy stuff. Hughie's dad. Wow, that got me. In fact, I could not rewatch it when I was doing my notes. I couldn't watch that whole scene. It was just too devastating. And we're going to talk about that towards the very end. Whew, so let's start. Did it get you? Did this episode actually get you to cry? It made me cry. All right, so let's start out on a lighter note, a more fun note, and that's the shots fired at Marvel and DC movies. Ooh, the V52 Expo is so clearly DC's The New 52 meets Disney and therefore Marvel's the D23 Expo. Mwah, chef's kiss on the commentary here. And it was brutal. It was so good. So these are my favorite jabs. So phases 7 through 19, which we're sharing with you today in exhaustive detail. Ooh! And they even had the chart. A lot of Tech Night. Tech Night's very popular. And I think my favorite title here is probably The Deeps. Like Gods and Dolphins. What a combo. That was hilarious. I am surprised that Tech Night is getting so many movies. But I think that the MCU, the reason that they kind of deserve this one is that they jumped the shark with these outlines when they stopped following them. They became like end credit scenes, which Marvel also pioneered, promises that they just couldn't keep. And I think it's, well, the end credit scenes is just their fault. But with these lists, they were putting out phases so far in advance, of course things end up having to be changed. And I think they should not release their plans that far in advance, because it's really come back to bite them in the butt. Then A-Train. Whoo! We just finished reshooting the reshoots, making this the most expensive TV show ever made, and that means it's gotta be good? Oh, brutal! I loved it! I mean, we might not all agree on what show he's talking about, but I think we can all definitely agree there's truth to that statement. It was beautiful. And then, even though I love the Batman, I can take a joke. I got a chuckle out of Tech Night saying he had 2 things. So he was like, it's been a whole year since my last movie, so you know it's time for a reboot. And then when he said our upcoming film has a 12-minute sequence that's entirely in pitch black. Part of me was like, that's ridiculous. And then part of me was like, that could be interesting. So really, really fun stuff. Zing! Zing, 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 zing. Oh, those sequences were so fun. I was a little disappointed, though, when the fake Guardians of Godolphin showed up for the briefest of cameos, just really in 2 spots. They had their own lame project that they were announcing. But I mean, if this season was going to do Gen V like this, I would have preferred they just totally ignored the show, except for obviously bringing in the virus as they do this episode. But just if you're not going to really, really bring the characters in, don't touch them, because this was just very weak sauce. I was disappointed. I'm sure the actors were disappointed as well. They're like, we get to go on set with the boys. And they're like, you've got 2 lines or 3 lines. And they're like, well, whatever. Hollywood's a tough business. All right, now behind the scenes at the V52 Expo with Homelander, the fallout from confronting his past is that maybe Homelander has been able to break from his humanity and no longer needs to be loved. I don't think that's the case. Let's break it down. But I think that visit solidified for him that it's really him and Ryan against the world. And he tells Ryan that from now on, he's not going to try and control Ryan the way Vought did control him. And there's no more rules for either of them. And that as far as he's concerned, the whole planet's empty except for the 2 of them. And that was a beautiful shot, by the way, in that empty hallway, emphasizing that it's just them against the world, which is real bad for the world. And what's even scarier is when Homelander, though, reveals to Ryan their true power, fear, and that they can just tell anybody to do anything, and that person will have to do it. That was crazy. So how does this sequence start? How does Homelander get the very sweet Ryan to that place? Well, he says, Ryan, what do you want to do with your life? And Ryan does, Ryan, like in the sweetest little cracking puberty voice, is like, well, I don't want, this is my thought. And he like, right through Homelander's heart. He goes, I want to be a real hero and actually help people because I think that's what my mom would have wanted. And Homelander's like, oh, make the pain stop. I mean, Homelander has this weird competition with the ghost of Ryan's mom and therefore also Butcher for Ryan's loyalty. And also that underscores that Homelander, for all his powers, he's not a real hero. Ryan certainly doesn't think that he is, because, and Homelander could have been, he's the most powerful being on Earth. And Ryan's basically saying to his face, you don't actually help anybody. But instead of Homelander reevaluating his life choices, he still manipulates Ryan, even though he said that he wouldn't, like a manipulator would. I'd never manipulate you as I manipulate you. And in the guise of helping someone, that PA that director is skeezing on, he twists that positive sentiment from Ryan into what does it feel like to have power over others thanks to this fear, and coaxes Ryan into doing the junior version of what he just did in the lab. That was amazing. But what makes the scene, what really brings it over the finish line, and makes it actually quite frightening, is that it works. And that for the first time, Homelander and Ryan finally connect. And we see Ryan literally drinking the Kool-Aid, aka milk-based beverage. Oh man! Homelander finally got through to him. I wonder if the video game reference in the earlier episode wasn't just awesome. That was a great video game. Many of you have said you'd like to actually buy that video game. But to show that Ryan was already predisposed to that mentality of control and disassociation, and also extreme violence for entertainment's sake. So Homelander can almost say, hey, you like playing that game? For us, real life is that game. We can make these playable characters, or NPCs even, do whatever we want. And, I think that's very interesting. I think this show is very smart and very layered, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was part of the commentary. Because why did Ryan go over? What are your thoughts on that? All right, and Homelander isn't just influencing Ryan, he has even bigger plans, much to Sage's dismay. She's in a little trouble. She's losing Homelander, who of course is her ace in the hole, who protects her from everybody else. And Firecracker is onto her. She knows that Firecracker set her up to be beaten up by Starlight, and Firecracker wants revenge. So when Homelander thinks he's now really found the leak, he's like, okay, that other person wasn't the leak. Here's the actual leak. Sage, of course, clearly knows the leak is A-Train. She's like, oh, I wonder how that footage ran itself out of crime analytics. And you're like, she knows. And I think it's interesting. She wants A-Train to know that she knows, but she isn't turning him in. But A-Train, understandably, is very nervous and tells Ashley he knows what else she did in Homelander's quarters. And you're like, what? What else did she do? Oh, that's a good one. That's a good thing to have waiting for us. And he says, I'm going to tell Homelander unless you help cover for me, because she's like, I'm so close to being exposed. So Ashley doesn't know what to do until an idea presents itself. And that's when that Vought news anchor, who she has that kinky relationship with, because he dumps her because she's no longer the true boss at Vought, and he says she doesn't do it for him anymore. He needs a dom who truly is a dom. She does not handle that well, and she pins the leak on him. Ooh, Ashley, that was so dark. Just when you think you might feel bad for Ashley, you're like, although, I mean, they're all horrible people, but you're like, wow, Ashley, I think you might have crossed a line. All right, so Homelander, he takes the bait happily. He doesn't care. I honestly think he doesn't care. To him, these people, humans, are all like roaches. He's like, I'll just, is that the wrong one? Or do I need to get another one? Whatever. He'll just stomp them all out. But Homelander says he uses this as an opportunity to win over the other supes. And he says, in order for us to make a better world for our kids. And I'm like, I think you're the only one who has any kids, Homelander. But it's like, you get the idea. They're going to have to go from beloved celebrities to feared gods. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And everyone but Sage and A-Train, because they both know that anchor is not actually the leak. And I also think there's maybe some other commentary there as well. But everybody else gleefully beats that news anchor to death. You know, it's funny. Celebrities really hate junkets. We've heard that a lot, particularly lately. And I wonder if that applies to conventions as well. Because maybe it was the perfect time after a day at the V52 Expo to tell them maybe celebrities isn't where it's at and Fearful Gods is better. Maybe that was the perfect time for them, the Soups to be like, yeah, I'm not enjoying being a celebrity. So I thought that was great. That scene overall, though, not only the conference room and marble and gold, which it's always been, but the way they shot it looking up at everyone, I think they intentionally changed the perspective. You really did kind of feel like you were on a Mount Olympus. I thought it was really well done. It was a good sell. It was a good pitch. As Vought knew, a Homelander who doesn't feel the need to be loved and approved of is an unstoppable Homelander. But can he really break years of conditioning that easily? Who's left for him to love him and approve of him? I'm thinking maybe he might now put it all on Ryan, which is very dangerous for Ryan. But I think at first it comes across as love bombing, as you see here. He's like, okay, it's just me and Ryan in the world, so that means I need Ryan to love and adore me. And I think maybe another way for Ryan to do that for Homelander is to be a little version of him, He's like, I am good enough, right? I'm strong enough. I'm good enough because Ryan wants to be like me. Fascinating. All right, so where is Butcher? Unbelievably, the good influence on Ryan. Who's your good influence? This crazy guy over here. I mean, it's a matter of perspective. Well, his time is, of course, running out, and he's becoming more and more desperate to defeat Homelander and save Ryan. So he tells the boys about the virus that was cooked up at Godolphin and that Newman currently has possession of it. I love the way Kimiko and Starlight kind of freaked out, being like, what do you have now? And you want us to go near it? But then makes a good point of like, do you really want Newman to have it? So say what you will about Butcher, and a lot of people, I love Butcher. I think this is a great show. But Butcher's a great character. But, I feel kind of bad that everyone's picking on him this season because he comes up with really great plans. And then great backup plans. The man can pivot. From the presidential pardon first he says, let's get a presidential pardon for Stan Edgar to help us out. And then when Stan is still on the fence, he's like, did you know your granddaughter got shot up with a bunch of compound V and now has Medusa face? And that did it. That did the trick. I love Stan Edgar. Giancarlo Esposito. So fun. I also related to, when he saw that truck and he was like, does anyone have a towel that I could put down to sit on? I was like, I love you, Stan. We're right there together, baby. So also, when that stuff doesn't work out, the way the Butcher is able to shift in kidnapping that scientist / Newman's boyfriend / Zoe's dad, who, by the way, also played an evil scientist on The Mandalorian. Talk about being typecast, although I love him in both places. Great actor. Very charismatic, even when he's not given a lot of material. And he chopped off the scientist's leg. I don't know why they weren't suspicious of such a clean cut. I was like, I don't know of any animal that's able to cut off a leg that well. But anyway, chopping off the scientist's leg so that everyone would think that the animals got him, then he was dead, so the Butcher can have him just to himself and make him cook up some more virus. I mean, these are good plans. I was like, you say what you will about Butcher, but as I said, the man has good plans. The man can pivot. I continue to think that he and MM are a very good combination because MM, keeps him grounded. So you also get a sneak peek, by the way, of that virus in action in the field. Look at those sheep drop. Oh, they dropped from the sky and they dropped fast. So I can see why Butcher wants that virus. But there's even more to this storyline. So I think it's brilliant to contrast how Stan Edgar and Victoria Newman work with how the boys work. It's fascinating because when you think about it, they really do the same thing, and that's try to control Soups. And I think they could both learn a lot from each other. Although it was almost like Stan Edgar and Victoria Newman were evaluating their performance, the boys, and I think they had some good feedback. I know Newman's a little blunt, just like her pops. But Starlight didn't need to punch her in the face. I'm not liking Starlight so much this season. I'm like, come on. I mean, I think she was genuinely trying to be nice to you, talking about the dual lives that they lead and trying to be public figures as Soups. I mean, I think there was like a potential, there was something there maybe for Starlight. Starlight's just so dead set on being the good guy that I think she doesn't understand that she's living in a world not of black and white, but of infinite shades of gray. Like Butcher understands. She's still so mean to Butcher. I mean, I know Butcher maybe shouldn't have tried. I mean, I don't know. He didn't go through with it. He didn't go through with the plan. I was with Butcher. All right, so the latest development, of course, for Starlight is that her powers are on the fritz because she has so much personal self-doubt and pain. So she's glitching. She's glitching hardcore. And as Newman says, that makes her a liability in the field because they can't rely on her. All right, now speaking of powers, we get some disturbing clues as to what might be going on with Butcher. There's a rabbit in that lab, a cute little bunny rabbit. I have a little bunny rabbit stuffed animal, and it made me look at that bunny a little bit differently after this sequence. So I was like, you can just sit over there, little bunny. All right, so anyway, I do love bunnies. When I was in school, we had a little pet bunny, and they had a little sandpaper-like tongue. It was so cute. So I have, even though they're rodents, technically, I think they're adorable. All right, and this was a very cute bunny, a little fluffer, a little fluff ball. So that rabbit in the lab, and by the way, another one of my favorite lines this episode is when Stan Edgar tells Newman he doesn't recall giving her permission to turn his rec room into a virology lab. What a crazy family! It was like the Carousel of Progress, Vought version. And I thought it was also very sweet she couldn't send him back to jail. There's love there. All right, anyway, there's a rabbit hooked up in the lab to Temp V, and, Butcher's like, hey, I've been on Temp V. You're on Temp V, little rabbit. Let me set you free. And he does, but also let's not forget there's a lot of Compound V in that lab as well. A combo that is also coursing through Butcher's veins. So he comes across that rabbit in the woods a little bit later who's very sick. And what the heck is that? Oh my God. It freaks Butcher out. And how often does Butcher get freaked out? When Butcher's freaked out, we should all be freaked out. And he's really scared because he still doesn't know what happened in that trailer. All he knows is he blacked out. And when he woke up, it was pretty bad. Again, even for Butcher. MM says the Butcher might be a lot of things, but he's not a monster. He's a mofo, but he's a mofo with a heart. Aww. However, why do all those animals go crazy? And by the way, the Secret Service continued to be red shirts. We had some scientist red shirts as well, because you got to have some people not make it out of there, but not any of your main characters, of course. So the animals weren't sick. They weren't dying. So why would the Compound V in the ground make them go crazy like that? Is there Temp V in the ground too? Is it the combo that Butcher again has put in his own body? Is that combo not only maybe changing him physically, like with the rabbit, right? I mean, the tentacles, the things that are swirling around inside under his skin and Butcher, but is it also making him more vicious? Is it turning him into a monster in more ways than one? Oh, good luck, MM. Now, speaking of monsters, here we go. Get the tissues. Hughie's dad might seem like the monster. Those powers, the boys' version of Kitty Pryde. I was like, that was really shocking. And it takes a lot to shock us at this point because we've been watching this show for 4 seasons, but this was amazing. What a sequence. And by the way, did you catch how he ghosted just at the moment that he accused his ex of looking right through him as if he wasn't there? Brilliant! As if the powers that he got from the Compound V were a manifestation of his darkest insecurities. Like he felt like he just was never there. Oh, it's so sad. A commentary on how a lot of, I think, parents feel. But I think the real monster is Hughie's mom, Daphne. What really solidified it for me? Well, that despite them pretending to be all good now, we love each other again. Clearly, at one point, there was deep, intense hatred between them. Like when Hughie's dad, his memory on the fritz, because of the Compound V, having had it when he was brain dead, he goes right back to that horrible time, and he's very upset with Daphne. He just hates her. But also, even earlier, when he first woke up, he apologizes to Daphne that she tried to reach back out to Hughie years later, and he wouldn't let her. He kept her from seeing her son. I'm guessing that this is Daphne's revenge. Not the Compound V, that's the cherry on top, because she didn't plan on that. It presented itself. But remember, she says, oh, Hughie, how do you know all this stuff about drugs? But remember, she works at Vought. She's saying she does new age type stuff, but I wouldn't be surprised. And by the way, this is all a theory. These are not spoilers. This is a theory I have that has not been confirmed yet by the show. But this is my theory. Remember, we still have one more season to go. But isn't Hughie's dad kind of young to have had a stroke? I wouldn't be surprised if she was behind it, especially after she manipulated Hughie's dad into giving her power of attorney. I just think this show is too smart to have that line about Hughie's dad keeping her away when she wanted to come back a long time ago. But yet earlier when she was confessing to Hughie and coming clean about what happened, between her and his dad and why she left, why didn't she mention that she tried to come back? Why didn't she tell Hughie about that? It makes her look really untruthful. And it makes it all the more tragic that she did the hate that she must have for her ex to put him through this. These scenes were brutal to watch. Anthony Starr's acting is brilliant, of course, in a class of its own. But what a guest spot from Simon Pegg. I think he deserves some love as well when it comes to hopefully award season. He not only did these scenes brilliantly, like the panic and the shifting in his memory. I mean, that's not a visual effect. That's acting. But also his portrayal of a dad. Just a dad. Like, it really hit. I would bet that almost everyone watching could see shades of their own dad in Pegg's performance. It was really beautiful. The pluses and the minuses. You know, a dad. And I think Hughie's relationship with him is also very relatable. They both do a good job fleshing it out. Sometimes he finds his dad annoying. His dad thinks small, voluntarily living in a smaller world. Having his father having never been to Paris despite wanting to go was such a perfect, sad touch. And that there's a lot Hughie doesn't know about his dad as a person, and now never will. That goodbye scene, where Hughie just wanted to be able to say goodbye after not picking up his dad's last call, you know, at the beginning of the season, which is sort of like a metaphor for their entire relationship. His dad always reaching out and Hughie ignoring it. And so they never really did get a chance to truly connect. Very well written show. And I think that Hughie didn't realize it, and maybe his dad didn't totally realize it, but on some level they did know that that was the case, but they always just felt they'd both have more time. Just like his dad always felt that he would get to Paris. Ugh. Now, the misdirect is that Hughie did to his dad what he did to their pet as a kid, right? Hughie as a child didn't want to let their pet go, so the pet had a horrible death. Did you see the Jar Jar reference? So they said, oh, you Jar Jar'd your dad. Come on, Jar Jar's been through enough, man. But Hughie's dad says that's the reason that he didn't want to give him power of attorney, and he gave it to his ex-wife instead because he said, I didn't want that to happen to me. And it kind of did. But it wasn't Hughie's fault. Hughie ended up being ready to say goodbye. He was ready to say goodbye. He chose not to give his dad the compound V after having that talk with Butcher. He was ready. Daphne made that call. Daphne made that mad experiment call. She knew that there was no way to tell what would happen with the compound V. And I bet she knew that it probably wouldn't be good. Because she works for Vought. Nobody works for Vought. And, if they're not immediately shown as a whistleblower and there isn't a problem there. I really don't trust this woman. I think she's still in that dark place. I think she hasn't gotten over what happened. I think she hates her ex, and she really got her revenge. Again, we'll see. This is my theory, not a spoiler. We'll see how it plays out. Finally, Frenchie, wrestling with his guilt and his demons. I thought his talk with Starlight was pretty good. Where she's like, why don't you talk to Kimiko? And he's like, I'm afraid she won't forgive me, and I'm even more afraid that she will. And I'm like, so what? Basically, Kimiko can't win? Come on, Frenchie. But he turns himself into the police for murders, multiple murders. I'm still not loving his and Kimiko's storylines, but they still have their moments. I did think it was very sweet when she texted him that they can't solve each other's problems, but they can hold each other's hands. Oi, put that on a greeting card. The boys, for such a raunchy, brutal show, it really has its really beautiful moments as well, which I think is why it works. It's not just like, there's been debate about, especially because some people don't like season 4 for various reasons. They've been saying, oh, the comic is better. And I think we almost all agree the comic is just pure shock value. And the show is just so much better. It's so well nuanced. I wish, Anthony Starr's been able to get some nominations here and there, but I really wish this show would get more credit for what it does. I think it's a really well done show. All right, so that's episode 5 of The Boys season 4. What did you think? What were your favorite moments? And what theories do you have cooking up? Some of you are very good at guessing what happens. I'm very impressed. Oh boy. And next week's episode. Whoo boy. Wow. All right, so what did you think? Share your thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.